This is the Sergio Rodriguez Show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sergio Rodriguez Show, a show unlike any other. Today, one of the coolest things that I get to do hosting in this platform is having one of my dearest friends in the softball world. Everyone who listens to my show and follows the Sergio Rodriguez Show knows that I've been a softball coach for 28 years, and I've invested my life in this wonderful sport. But one of the cool things is that as you go through this journey of softball, I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of very cool people. And one of the nicest people in the business, one of the people that I feel overwhelmed with joy when I can trust one of my kids to go play for her wherever she's been, whether it was at Hartford and now at Seton Hall, is the head softball coach at Seton Hall University, Angie Churchill. Angie, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Serge.
I'm glad you were able to stop in, because last time we did something and we were on the phone, but you're so beautiful. I want everybody to see what you look like,
Yeah, I'm glad to be in studio here. This is great.
This is great. Angie, this is the first time that obviously we've been able to do something just exclusively one-on-one in terms of being all about you. The last time we did the show was more of a recruiting thing. We had a couple of coaches on with you. So give us a little background on how you got started growing up. Were you always going to be a softball player? Did you play other sports? Take me back to Chicago.
Yeah, so when I grew up right outside the south side of Chicago, I was definitely a three-sport athlete. I played tennis, which I equate my great footwork to.
Okay.
Basketball and softball. So, basketball and softball were my two loves. I played travel ball forever, really.
Who did you play with?
So I played with a small team where I started out called the Joliet Jays. It was a very small program, and then I went to the Orland Park Sparks. Which is
I remember. We played Orland Park when I remember when. I might have coached against you. Who the hell knows? But I remember playing the Orland Park Sparks way back in the day.
Yeah, they've been around for a long, long time. They're one of the top programs out of the kind of South Chicagoland area. But the sport has blown up so much. When I was growing up, there was only a handful of teams to play for, and you really had to there were intense tryouts.
Listen,
it was crazy.
I remember, not to cut you off, I remember coaching in the late 90s and having all-state juniors playing 16 and under.
Yeah.
Because they could not, there were only about 16 or 17 teams in the entire state of New Jersey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You had to really make it try out. I remember going to tryouts and there were 60 kids there because there's only so many teams to play for.
Correct.
And, there were times when you would see so many people coming from tryouts, crying, really upset, and I really think you had to learn how to deal with failure and get better and try out again or go through the process again. And that, I think, some of the biggest things we learn and that I try to teach kids now is that process that I learned growing up of dealing with failure, someone beating you out for a spot, those type of life lessons then. But yeah, I played with the Sparks for a long time. There was a point I didn't know if I wanted to play basketball or softball. That was my other love. So, yeah, I picked softball. It was a great experience for me. I got recruited late in the process.
You know what? Let me stop you right. Everything's late to the process, right? And we're gonna get to that a little later, because I feel that a lot of the juniors that I speak to are always in panic mode.
Yes.
But we're gonna speak about that. Take me to the point when Angie Churchill looked in the mirror and said, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I can play this in college. Do you remember the moment? Was it in a game?
Yeah, honestly, it was probably my sophomore year when I realized that I was pretty good, and there was a time when I was trying out and, I just felt like I was better than a lot of the other people trying out. And, I really excelled in high school and, my coaches were giving me a lot of accolades. So I really thought like, wow, I'm pretty good at this sport. Like that's when I really started to dive into it and like start going to hitting lessons, start doing like a lot of work on my own to kind of perfect my craft type of, and I knew, but like in the other thing, and we can talk a lot about this more too, is I wanted to play other sports so I didn't get burnt out. And I knew like, hey, tennis was really helping my footwork. And basketball really was like helping me stay in condition, that competitive edge, like all of those things. So I really wanted to like play 3 sports and I loved playing sports. So that was part of it too, where I see like so many kids this day and age are like, hey, I want to be the best third baseman. I'm going to play third 365 all year round, only do that. Like, it's crazy. Like even now, like I have parents ask me, they're like, is it okay if Susie plays soccer? And I'm like, yes, please play soccer.
Yeah.
Please play soccer, you know?
I'm a big proponent. I allow kids, I say I allow, not like I control anybody's lives, but in the travel ball world, in the fall, I mean, you've come to watch us play and you've said to me, hey, where's this kid? And I've said to you, oh, she's got a volleyball game or something. It's part of the gig. I am a believer of that. I'm a big supporter of playing another sport because I think it teaches you other things. And I think it makes you use different muscles.
It does. And you develop the other skills and the other muscles than like just always training that one skill set. So like I've like, please don't pigeonhole your kids, even if they're not great at soccer, but it's something they want to do, an experience they want to have. And, it just helps that camaraderie for the team sport. Like just do it.
Take me to, you end up going to Michigan. Yep. Obviously it's well documented, but take me to the process of how you ended up at Michigan, because if Michigan was recruiting you, I'm sure there were other schools.
Yeah. So when I started getting recruited, so it's funny because now in our world, Colorado is a big thing. And when we started going, and I remember my first year going to Colorado, didn't really know what to expect. It was the first year we went as a program, and we were like, whoa, there's like a lot of teams here, whatever. We ended up playing the Corona Angels out of California, and they were like the top team. And we're like this little team out of Chicago. I wasn't with the Sparks yet. I was still with the Joliet Jays at that point. And we just got lucky enough to be playing them. And there's like every coach known to man there, like Tennessee, Oklahoma, Michigan, like every Big Ten school was there. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is great. I had the game of my life, and that they must have hit me like 15 balls. I'm making like diving plays left and right. Now they had a pitcher. I forget where she ended up going, but she might have been going to UCLA. I can't remember at the time, but
right place, right time.
Yeah. Couldn't hit her to save my life at that time, but I was playing great defense, making every play. I distinctly remember their coach saying, okay, we know the shortstop can field the ball. Can we hit it somewhere else? Like, and that's like just the kind of game I was having. So I started getting on everybody's radar, and then that's when I was like, oh, I can really play at the next level in college. So I knew the program, like I needed to get on a little bit better program where I'd get seen more. And that's when I switched to the Sparks. But, and then I started getting the pamphlets in the mail where you really don't see that much anymore either. But, and I went to University of Illinois on a visit. I went to Southern Illinois, and at the time they were ranked, like back in the early 2000s, they were in the top 25. They were really good. And I went on a visit there, fell in love. I really thought I was going to Southern Illinois. And then it just didn't work out. And then Michigan came in the picture, and I went on my recruiting visit there, and I'll never forget that. I stepped on campus, and it was over. I loved it. It was great.
That was it.
That was it.
So it had nothing to do with Hutch.
Well, obviously, yes. But, and, when you go there, like, there's a tradition that you walk into.
Correct.
And when I went on campus, I was like, I fell in love with the Michigan way and what they do there and how they run their program, and everything like Hutch, Bonnie, and Brundage were saying, like, I was sold. I'm like, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to be a part of. So I've been a Michigan woman ever since.
When you got there, the first day you were at practice,
Yep.
did you say to yourself, I can play here? Or did you say, damn, this is going to be hard?
Well, listen, when I first got there, I was like, yeah, I belong. And then our first practice, I was like, wow, I'm going to have to work, because everyone's good there.
Yeah, yeah.
You walk in kind of having that belief that you're good and you're kind of the best where you came from. And then you walk into a program, and listen, I see this now everywhere I've coached, that everyone comes in like knowing they're good, but then they get there and they're like, whoa, like everyone's good. You've got to do more than you thought you had to do.
One of the things that in having conversations with the players that I've coached, a lot of my kids that have gone to Division III schools, I feel have an unfair advantage. The unfair advantage that they have is the schedule and the competition and the talent level that they've practiced with all the time. Mm-hmm. Right. So the kids that end up going to Rowan, all my kids really go on and start right away.
Yep.
But when we speak about this, when they speak to their teammates, 9 out of 10 of them never played in Colorado. So the game slows down for them in a lot of ways.
Right.
Even though the level is good,
yep,
it's still almost like a lateral movement. Mm-hmm. But at the Division I level, particularly the Power 5 schools, everybody's played at the best events. So you're right. There is a second jump that you have to make immediately or you're going to sink.
Yeah, and that's what I learned real quick. Like, I learned that everyone's good. I'm going to have to work my butt off. I was the first one to practice, the last one to leave, like, all the time. I just knew I had to work. And that's where I think, going back to, having those tryouts and like failing or like knowing like, wow, there's a lot of good kids here. You got to put the work in. Like, that's where that drive came from, of like knowing like, okay, there's a lot of great athletes here. I also want to win and be the best person that I need to be for Michigan softball, and then hopefully when my time comes and gets called, I'll be ready for it, So.
Did you start as a freshman?
I had to work my way into the lineup because I definitely didn't, because, my thing, like, I was overly confident in my defense. Hitting was a different level for me. I was not like...
Well, you're not Dominican.
Yeah. Right. I was not like that power hitter. I hit one home run in my entire career. Like, I got lucky it was a grand slam, but I hit one. I was more of just a tough out.
Then again, those bats... were aluminum
you really
back
had
then.
To get a hit.
Not, you weren't hitting with Ghost, right?
No. Yeah, they were like the thud, and you like really had to.
And your
get
hands
it.
would vibrate, especially in that cold weather. How would you rate your college experience, not only from the softball point of view, but in general? If I said to you, Michigan was, your answer is?
The best 4 years of my life. For sure. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I loved every second of it. I just bought in. I bleed blue. I'm obviously a diehard Michigan fan. I just loved everything about it. Like, just the culture they create there. I mean, you leave a Michigan person, a Michigan woman. Like, our alumni network is just so strong. Like, it's crazy. So it's a part of you. And that's like, like the experience I try to create for our kids. Like, I want them to leave and turn around and look and be like, wow, I'm a Seton Hall Pirate, for life, and like come back and be proud to be that, and obviously, hopefully we win a lot, but like, I want them to have that true college experience where they're like, they love it. They get a great degree, go on to do great things in a career. So, I'm trying to create that college experience, which I think some people forget about. That gets lost in the process of like, listen, like, yes, softball is a big part of it. Academics is a big part of it. But so is the school. Like, go support other programs. Go be a part of different clubs or whatever on your campus. And like, get ingrained in the school, you know, and I think like sometimes that process gets lost for some people because it's just like softball, gotta win. And like these people get like just burnt out.
Yeah, you become dogmatic in that thinking. At what point did you say, I'm going into coaching?
So I was honestly, I remember this because I originally thought I was going to teach and be a basketball, softball, high school coach.
Yeah, okay, we all do that.
Yeah, right. And I was like,
all of us that don't want to work end up doing that.
Right.
We all think that, right?
It's like, I'm going to go back to high school. I'm going to coach basketball. I'm going to coach softball. You know, and I always kind of thought that was the route I was going to go because I kind of always knew I just really wanted to coach. But then like by my junior year, I got pretty close to our coaching staff, and I remember having a conversation with Hutch, and I was like, man, like I feel like I could do what Hutch does. Like obviously at her level is a much different story, but you know, the college level, like I knew I would struggle with the high school level, like because it depends on like what district you're in and who you have, and you don't necessarily get to like pick your team. It's
school
like
boards,
who you
unless
have.
you coach at a private school,
right? And you know, I knew I would struggle with like, hey, you know, Susie's best friend who's playing just to play but doesn't really care. Like I would struggle with that a lot. So then I really decided my junior year that I wanted to be at the college level. So, you know, I talked to Hutch a lot about like what that would look like, how to go about doing that. And then when I graduated, I got a grad assistant position at Ohio University, which, you know, the Bobcats. And, you know, I went there and did a GA spot for a year. And then I went to the University of Buffalo for 5 years.
The Bison.
No, the
Bulls. The Bulls.
Yeah. So I was there for 5 years. And I had 6 years under my belt, and I figured it was time for me to make the jump. And, you know, I got an odd opportunity. It's a small school in Buffalo. It's called Dewville College. They are Division II now, but they were Division III at the time. And so they gave me an opportunity to be the head coach and the SWA. And I was like, oh, good, I'll get some administration experience. So then I was there for 3 years, kind of turned that program around, won their first conference championship. Then I went to Georgian Court University, which is my first
Which is
stop
where we
in
met.
Jersey.
Which is where we met.
Which is where you and I met. Was there for 2 years. Did really well there. Turned that program around. Lost a conference championship. Got an at-large, and then lost the regional championship to good old Dean at Caldwell. Then I got the Wagner, my jump back to Division I. I was at Wagner in Staten Island for 2 years. Lost a conference championship there. But, you know, turned that program around, and then I got the Hartford job.
I want to stop right there. Because what's always amazed me about the success of coaches, or I should say the successful coaches. Think about your timeline and where you've gone and how nomadic you've been.
Yep.
Chicago, college at Michigan.
Yep.
You then go to Ohio.
Yeah.
You then go to Buffalo.
Yep.
So all these routes, you come to Jersey, you go to New York, you go to Connecticut.
Yep.
Obviously, now you're back in Jersey. Hopefully, you're here forever.
Yeah.
But people don't understand how hard it is to get there and how much you have to sacrifice. I will be honest with you, and I don't think I've ever told this to anybody. I think I would be a very successful college coach because I believe that I have a skill to get people to buy in.
Yeah.
As a coach.
Yep.
What I was never willing to commit was leaving New Jersey.
Yeah.
I would never do what you did.
Yeah.
To ultimately end up with the prize.
Right.
And so I admire you guys because I wanted to be a basketball coach. I never said I wanted to be a softball. Who the hell wants to be a softball coach? I was going to be the head coach at St. John's.
That where the money is.
Oh, 100%, right? That was going to be my job since I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
But when I was at FDU, Fred Hill Jr. gave me an opportunity to be around that program. But I was going to have to leave New Jersey to do that.
Yeah,
and I just was not going to do that.
Yeah, it's a tough life. I mean, I tell everybody, and you know, I sacrificed a lot to do that because it's hard to like have
family relationships. Yeah, I mean,
and like move around. Like I pretty much have moved every 2 to 3 years. Like it's hard. I hate moving too. Like it is, it's a lot, and you know, you have to sacrifice because you have to go where the job is.
Correct.
You know, and you don't get to like be like, oh, hey, I want to live in Chicago or Jersey for the rest of my life. I'll just coach there. Like, it doesn't always work like that. So you have to be willing to move, be willing to adjust and build and be kind of open to going different places. And that was tough. It's always tough because you're always picking up, moving, rebuilding, picking up, moving, rebuilding. It's a tough job, and I always tell people when they say they want to get into coaching, I was like, okay, if you want to, like, because I've had the path that a lot of people have, like, you know, there's some people that come out and get a great job right away, and that's what they get, and that's great.
Or they're fortunate enough to get an assistant job at Seton Hall with you, and then they're able to end up at Rutgers or something like that and stay in New Jersey, and their life stays the same. But that's really
that's very rare.
Exactly,
very rare.
So now you're at Hartford.
Yep.
You had that program rolling.
Yeah. We were building something great there.
And the administration tells you one day,
we're going Division III. In season, they told me that. That was great.
How did that, give me the initial feeling that you had when that happens? Because it's not just softball.
Yeah.
It's not just the paycheck.
No.
Because we understand you could have had that job for life.
Yeah.
But your ambition, your goals, and the kids who you now feel you almost lied to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think, honestly, that was the hardest part for me. I was heartbroken for our student athletes. Like, they came there for that experience, for that Division I experience, and the program that I was telling them we were going to have, you know, and it was hard. Like, there was like rumors about it, and no one ever actually thought it was ever going to happen. Like, our men's basketball,
I didn't think it was going to happen.
No one did.
Yeah.
Our men's basketball team just came off playing in the tournament for the first time ever. We had so much buzz about Hartford. I was like, this is great. You know, we have great facilities there. Like, it was awesome. And then all of a sudden, like, it honestly felt like the rug got pulled out from underneath us. We're in season. My kids are heartbroken. They kind of felt like, wow, what are we going to do now? You know, and so many kids, because it's hard to just get up and transfer everywhere.
Not now.
Well, you could get in the portal.
You're right. You might not find a home.
You're going to be with like 3,000 other people.
Exactly.
But I just felt like heartbroken for them. I was, you know, disappointed for me and my staff, you know, because obviously it's just like a different game, and it's not, you know, what people signed up for. It was very heartbreaking. I could just say I was like depressed for our kids, and I, you know, like I tried to help as many of them as I could. Like, it was tough. It was a really, really tough time for us.
One of the things that wasn't tough is that you had built a phenomenal resume.
Yeah.
Everybody knew who you were, and you landed on your feet with a job in the Big East at a great institution like Seton Hall. You get to Seton Hall. What's the first thing that you noticed that you said, wow, this is really cool?
Yeah, I think it's just like the culture there, you know, of like the Big East. There's a deep tradition at Seton Hall, and I was like, this is what I can sell. This is what I can buy into. Like, you know, there's a chapel on campus that so many people get married at, but you have to, both parties getting married have to have gone to Seton Hall.
Correct.
So there's like such deep-rooted tradition there and history, and I was like, I can build something great here. So I was like, wow.
What's been the hardest part of the job so far?
You know, I think for me, like, some of it is like, you know, we're in South Orange. We're a little bit landlocked with what we can build and indoor facilities. Like our field isn't directly on campus. Like that's, been a little bit of
it's on campus, off campus, because it's really a county park, correct?
Right. So I think like that's been a little bit
And I think
hard.
the county and Joe D and
Jody's been great.
Phil Elijah have done a great job of making it a part of the school as much as possible.
As much as possible. They've been great. They've been willing to work with us, but there's only so much we can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can't, like you said, it's got an what you can do has an expiration limit.
Right, exactly. And like, listen, Jody and Phil, they've been great. We work together to make all the upgrades to the field to keep it in great condition. And it's been awesome. It's just it's only gonna be so good. You know what I mean? So that's been a little bit of the toughest thing, because it's then gonna be hard to compete with some of the other schools in the Big East with their facilities and like what they have and stadiums they're building. Like UConn just built a really nice stadium. So I think like with that type of thing, it's hard. But for me, it's not hard to build and sell tradition in a great academic school, which Seton Hall is, and that, like, I think sometimes you can get past some of the flashy things of that, where it's like, hey, you want to win a championship, that's where we're headed, and I think kids can buy into that.
So I think one of the best things that you've always done at the places you've been, but let's stick with Seton Hall right now, is that you are recruiting the best players in New Jersey. That's always been a complaint of mine as a college, as a travel coach, that the college coaches that were in place, whether it was Seton Hall, whether it was, or Rutgers continues to be that way, we would have player after player after player, Gatorade Players of the Years, elite kids that, in my opinion, were elite level New Jersey players, right? Because we tend to see them all.
Yeah.
Going to Albany, going to Hofstra, going every other place but Seton Hall and Rutgers. And you came in and you immediately changed that. Why do you think that a lot of the local schools tend to go west of the Mississippi to get players?
Well, I think, and I've seen this so many times, and that, like, when I was on my interview at Seton Hall, like, I told them, because they, obviously when you're on your interview and they ask you about, what's your recruiting philosophy and all that, I go, I'm going to get the best kids out of New Jersey in the tri-state area, because, those are the kids that want to be here, that have the buy-in. I think people get a little bit enamored going to California or Texas or Arizona, where it's like, listen, yep, there's great athletes out there, and they can play all year round, and they might sometimes right off the bat be a little bit better than, some of the kids in this area, because they can be outside all year long. They can practice on the field all year long, and they don't have to go inside and take some time off or like whatever, that they get like enamored with going and getting those kids. But I've always had the philosophy of like getting the best kids in the area, and they'll run through a brick wall for you. You can never
get this from a kid that's not from this area, in my opinion. You could have a handful, because you always got to get the best players you can get.
Yep.
The weather becomes a factor.
Yes, huge.
I think kids west of the Mississippi, they come here.
When they're like, oh, coach, it's freezing and it's 65 out, I was like, oh, you just wait.
100%, right?
This would be a really nice game day.
100%, right? So that's number one. Number two, it's hard to get familial and get that culture going. Why? Because they're basically visitors at your campus. You don't have their families there. You don't have, friends there. Why? Because they're not in driving distance.
Yeah.
So it becomes hard to do all that stuff that you do get with the local kid. Not to mention, let's be honest, Angie, if a kid is good enough to go play at UCLA, you're not getting her.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what the next thing I was going to say. is when you're getting, like, are you getting the tier 1 kids out of that area? Like, I'm not going to beat out a UCLA kid to come to Seton Hall. Like, probably not, unless they have, you know, they're from New Jersey. Maybe they moved to, you know, California and they want to come back, you know, like a situation like that. You know, so we got to get the tier 1 kids out of New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, the tri-state area, the East Coast, like whatever. And yes, you're going to get some kids out of state, out of the area, and get kids to come in and be a part of the program you're building. But I've just always been a firm believer that you've got to get the tier 1 kids here. They know it. They breathe it. Their families do. You know, that's how, like, that culture builds, you know. And there's been, like, some of the kids on, you know, the team that I have now, I was like, oh, what was your recruiting process? And they're like, oh, I didn't even know about Seton Hall until blah, blah, blah. And I was, you know, they just...
I tell people all the time that 90% of my kids have gone to a school that wasn't on their original top 5 list, because at the end of the day, you're always going to want to go where you should always go where you're wanted.
Yeah,
right?
That's big, yep.
What is the hardest challenge for a Division I coach right now in recruiting in the East Coast?
I mean, there's a lot, honestly. Like, you know, you're kind of always fighting a little bit too of, like, right off the bat, like, people want to, like, go south and play in warm weather. You know, you kind of get the reverse effect of that too, of, like, you know, everybody wants a Power 5 right off the bat because they think they want that experience and they know. And it's, like, you know, hard for me because obviously I had that experience of, like, saying not to do that. Like, you know, obviously you want everyone to have their dream and find the right fit school for them. But I think there's 2 big things. One of, like, people wanting to leave and go south if they think that. And then the portal becomes a crazy beast to deal with too, because, you know, there's so many coaches now that kind of recruit off the portal.
Well, and you know, that brings up an interesting point, because in speaking to some basketball coaches, particularly the mid-major coach, or look at a situation in the Big East like Providence.
Yeah.
Providence, who, in my opinion, has the best basketball coach, one of the top 10 in the country, but the best in the Big East.
Yep.
He loses all 5 starters, goes into the portal, and he's able to keep that program clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Do you think that as time goes on here, coaches are going to recruit more off the portal because at least they know they're getting a seasoned player with 150 college at-bats at the Division I level, rather than to go get a high school junior or senior who they have to project?
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to be the norm?
I think it will start to be the norm, honestly. I mean, you saw it, like, and I know we're still kind of in the COVID, like, this is the last year of, like, the COVID extra year. So I think it might die down a little bit of, like, people, because, like, now people's rosters are crazy and there's 5th years that people won't have moving forward. You'll kind of be more in the traditional 4-year plan of people outside of, you know, bearing some, like, injuries or, like, maybe a few kids getting redshirted type of thing. But I do think it's here to stay, you know, because, like, look at, you saw it so much last year of, like, the top programs, like, they're just switching schools.
Yeah.
Of, like,
they're taking other people.
Yeah.
I saw there was a kid who was the Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah,
she transferred, right?
To Oklahoma.
Like,
it's crazy. But that's, like, what's happening now is, like, you know, for whatever reason, like, maybe you didn't get as many starts as you wanted, or you didn't, you know, you think Oklahoma gives you the best shot to win a national championship. I don't know what it is, you know, exactly. But, like, you just see kind of, like, a shift of, like, kids going to different schools and you know, as a coach, they're going to see, like, oh, hey, like, yeah, you're going to take that kid. Like, it's hard to say they should.
Yeah, you can't turn down talent. Yeah,
right.
yeah. But it's just, but it's something, as somebody who spends his whole time trying to get kids into college.
Yep.
It's becoming harder to find fits, because at the end of the day, you're not only competing with the kids in your class now, you're competing with the kids 2 classes ahead of you who already spent time in college. So yeah, it's a little bit it's a little bit challenging of a situation.
It is.
And
It's hard to
and I
navigate.
think what adds to that is the fact that a lot of the mid-major coaches are coaches who are using those jobs as stepping stones.
Yep.
So they don't plan on being there 6 years.
Yeah.
So they want to get in there and win right away.
Yep.
So they want to
So
win
gonna
2
go-
years because they want your job.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
So they want to be able to go in and win. So now if a kid can't play in the Big East, the next step would have been to go to the MAC.
Yeah.
But now some of those MAC coaches might not even recruit. They might want the kid transferring from Seton Hall instead.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
So it becomes a little harder for that. So it's almost like you have kids that are not good enough to play in the Big East, and then they go play Division III because there's not as many opportunities, in those mid majors.
That's why I think it's here to stay. It's
Yeah.
just going to be the new norm in the world we live in, because it's just and then you get that kid that comes in who believes they're good, but they don't start right away, and then they're like, I'm out. They don't put the work into, okay, work, and then, find your way in the lineup. It's like you get those kids that get in there, they're upset that they're not playing right away, which is hard to do.
I get it.
It's
I
very,
get it.
very
I
hard
get
to
it.
start as a freshman.
Yeah. Just physically, it's hard.
It's so hard. It's like, our game is just so much faster. Like, it's such a hard turnaround coming from, even if you play the highest level.
The length of games become a problem also.
Yeah.
Right? Your body has to get accustomed to the 60 games. It's not the same as in high school you play one game a day. You might not play with a rain out till Friday. You play it on Monday,
Right.
It's different too.
Well, and just the mental part of it too. It's so mentally exhausting at our level because there's so much pressure on the kids.
And you got to go to school.
And you're balancing so much, and we play 56 games before playoffs in a short amount of time, you know what I mean? And they're drained, they're exhausted, the travel part of it, like it's just all part of it, and it's exhausting. It's mentally, physically, emotionally exhausting, and the speed of our game is faster. And you're not just going to the tournament and playing your 5 games, and you might play pitchers pitch like 4 innings, and you got to get through the whole 7 innings, and you got to get up and you play 2 in a day typically sometimes on the weekends for tournaments, which is why I think a lot of the conference schedules have gone to a 3-game series of 1, and 1. But it's just our game. It's tough. It's hard to be really good at this level and at any college level, really.
Last thing I want to run by you. You would think I'm a prime candidate for a guy that's going to sit on his couch and watch college softball all the time.
Yeah.
I do not watch Division I softball. I don't even go to your games.
Yeah.
And you have one of my kids there.
Yes.
Okay. And you're essentially, I could get to your facility in 15 minutes.
Right.
But I do love the Division III game.
Yeah.
The reason why is because every year, 25 teams can win the national title.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody can win it.
Yep.
The smallest Division III school can win a national title.
Yep.
Okay. I've always asked players this. I've never asked a college coach this. You're the first person I'm going to ask this to. Is it hard for you to coach at Seton Hall knowing that lightning would have to strike in a bottle for you to ever win the ultimate prize in your sport?
Yeah. I mean, as the competitor in me, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because listen, I've coached at all 3 levels.
And you've played and had an opportunity.
Yeah. Listen, it was hard for me because at Michigan, we won 3 Big Ten championships. I went to the World Series 3 times. The year after I graduated, they won the national championship. It was gut-wrenching.
Maybe you were the problem.
That's why I go, is it me? It's me. Okay, it's me. Great. But, as the competitor in me, yes. But I also then tap into, and this is what I tell kids on our recruiting, part of my recruiting spiel to kids, and I don't mind sharing this. I want to be the next, JMU.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trust me, they weren't stealing Oklahoma's recruits. They didn't like somehow
They figured it out. Yeah.
talk all the top tier kids from going to like Florida, Michigan, UCLA, Oklahoma, and go to JMU. They didn't do that. They got a bunch of kids to buy into their program, work their butts off,
committed to stay. Yeah.
And they stayed. You know, their third baseman when they had their run was like 4'10". You know how many people told that kid? And if you ever saw her,
I've seen. I did see her.
She was like, so many coaches passed on me because I was too short. I was, too big. I wasn't fast enough. Like blah blah blah. Like Odyssey Alexander, their pitcher that made the run, that play that she made
at home plate, right?
This home plate. Yeah, like it's not like JMU practices that play.
Correct.
She saw the ball, saw the runner, and was like, this kid isn't scoring. And just had that mindset that they had as a team in a program. Like, you can't coach that. You build it, and that's what I'm trying to build at Seton Hall, and that's who I want to be. I want to be the next kind of mid-major, next kind of level up conference, the Big East. Listen, the Big East is cutthroat. It is tough. There's a lot of great teams. I think it sets you up to then succeed at regionals when you start to get at the top of the Big East, and then be competitive at regionals. And like once you start to get those kids to buy in, then you can start competing at regionals and start competing with the top teams, and that's where I'm trying to get at. And then, hey, maybe lightning in a bottle strikes once in my lifetime. That would be great.
If I were a kid trying to go to Seton Hall, what would be your number one advice? If I wanted to play for Angie Churchill.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be a competitor.
Well, let's assume the kid is good.
Yeah.
But the kid maybe doesn't have the access that, let's say, a kid on the Heist has, because obviously you already have a kid there.
Yeah.
So once you have a kid from a program, it does open up the door
100%.
For other kids, because especially if the kid does well.
Yeah.
If a kid plays on a lesser travel team, or a kid is in a good program but has no relationship, what would you say is the best avenue to get to Seton Hall?
Yeah, you got to go to camp. And because, like, listen, there's a million camps you can go to. And, like, I might be at one. My assistant might be at one. There's, like, a million different camps that, like.
But you're going to be the one at Seton Hall.
But I'm going to be there at Seton Hall. Like, whatever schools you're really interested in, want to get on their radar, you got to go to camp, and then you got to be ready for your moment. Because that, like, the individual school camps is where you're going to get the most noticed. Because if you're at, a camp pre-whatever tournament, there's going to be 300 kids there. It's going to be really, really tough to stand out there.
That's why I always have my kids. I tell my kids, wear your gold jersey.
Yes, you have to. Because
nobody wears gold. I mean, my kids stand out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like the people that wear the pin-on numbers, those are tough. Those are tough. So.
You have anything coming up? You want anybody to know? You guys started practice already?
Yeah, we're 3 weeks in. We leave next week. Thursday. We're going to Southern Miss. We're going down there to play, to open up. Like, next weekend is opening weekend for Division I. So not everybody, but a lot of teams will open up next weekend. I'm excited. We open up against Samford on Friday.
Not Stanford.
Samford. Yeah. And Southern Miss. So we're the 3 teams in the tournament. I'm really excited about it. Excited to get on the field. After a point, you've had fall ball, winter break. We've been practicing for 3 weeks. Like, everyone's just itching to play right now, So it's exciting. I'm really excited to build on what we did last year. So I think, the biggest thing is, we had a 20-win season last year for the first time in 5 years. And I really think our kids believe this year. It was like last year, like, we had some good excitement. We were really competitive in the Big East. We lost 7 games by 1 run, which totally could have changed how the Big East turned out for us last year. But, being in those pressure situations for our team, I think, like, we built a lot off that. I think they really believe we can actually compete this year and, like, really do something. So I'm excited to see how we build off last year and what we're going to do this year. So
Angie, thank you for joining me, man.
No, thanks for having me.
It's been really cool.
And let me just say, you would be a great college coach.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's not even, when I speak about that, it's not even about the X's and O's, because I think that a lot of people can sit there, and the one beauty about our sport is that there's no really one way to play many situations. Some people might bunt. Some people might let the kid hit, and the kid gets a double. You look like a genius. I try to bunt, and the kid pops it up into a double play, right?
Doubles are awesome.
But I believe that so much of being a coach, particularly in 2023, is adjusting. I am not the same coach in 2023 than I was in 1996. I don't treat the kids the same.
Yeah.
I don't coach the same. And I'm more in tune. And I think it helps that I have teenage boys.
Yep.
Right. So I'm okay with the music, even though I don't like it. I don't listen, but at least I can understand and speak their language.
Yeah.
As much, because you have to adapt. Because if you don't adapt, the game passes you by.
100%.
And the game and the kids pass you by.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're that old guy saying, get off my lawn, right?
Yeah. I say that too. Like, there's so, like, every year you like go into the year with a plan, and it's never what it is, because your team's different things come up. Like, you have to adjust every year. And if you're not, it will pass you by. In every year, like who I was 5 years ago, if you would ask kids that have played for me like 5-10 years ago, they would be like, whoa, like, coach, you're so different. Like, you have to adjust to the times, adjust to the change. Like, there's so many different things that like the kids deal with now. Like, one big thing that we did this year that I'm hoping pays off really well, but I've noticed it just in like the attitude. Like, we track their sleep. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure that they're getting 8 hours a night. You know what I mean? And we every Friday, and like, listen, there's no like consequences, whatever. I want them to be honest with me, because again, we don't have the budget and whatever to like fund buying all the high end things. So it's just like they track it on their own, and then they tell us like if they had a week where they didn't sleep well, but at least it gives you a baseline. Yeah, if they averaged 8 hours of sleep this year, and we did it the whole year so far, and I tell you, the feedback I've gotten from our kids about it has been like, they're like, I feel so much more attentive in the classroom and like my study habits, and it's translating to the field. Like, they're more attentive, and they're getting sleep. And like, if I feel like we're run down for a week, I'll give them an extra day off. I'll tell you though, you can't, and don't lie to me, there's no coach that sleeps 8 hours. So I know you're not sleeping 8 hours. I'm not tracking my sleep. Guys, that was Angie Churchill, the head coach at Seton Hall University. And you've been listening to the Sergio Rodriguez Show, a show unlike any other.
This is the Sergio Rodriguez Show.